للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهود والسنين أما بعد. We continue in Usul al-Thalatha at this time, which is 3:16 p.m. Sunday, October 6, 2019, which agrees on the Hijri calendar of where still in this blessed month of inshallah Safar, the 7th of Safar, the year 1441 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. And we will continue in explaining the second foundation of what validates one's Islam, which is the testimony that none has, the testimony that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, being the last prophet and the last messenger sent to all humanity, it entails numerous affairs in which you'll find that the Muslim, it's incumbent upon him to know. As you'll find that there are Muslims, like we said, there are Muslims out there, probably been Muslim for 40 years or 50 years. And some of them were born in Muslim countries. And some of them were born Muslim in Muslim countries, and they're still ignorant of these affairs. Even though they might say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. They'll say that daily. And they'll testify and they'll verbally acknowledge this affair and say it upon their tongue, not realizing what it necessitates and what's incumbent upon a person if he says it. There's a lot of people out there who, even from our land that we're in, you'll find people out there that say that I've been Muslim for 40 years and 50 years. What do you know? I was born in a Muslim country. Some of them say, I was born Muslim. I was born Muslim. What do you know? Or I was Muslim for 60 years or 50 years or 30 years. What do you know? Or I was born in a Muslim family. And other than that, from the different claims that the people have, and then when you look to their acts, you'll find that it clearly is in opposition to what? The shahada, the testimony of Muhammad Rasulullah, what it means and what it necessitates. We were talking about last class a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about it's not just enough that one says Muhammad Rasulullah. It's not enough. It's not adequate. One says it, of course, and they profess that verbally. However, there's other affairs that's binding upon one to carry out once he utters this testimony. From those affairs, like we said, it's not just the mere belief that he's the final prophet and messenger to all humanity, or that you might think he's an abqari. As you'll find this from those from the non-Muslims who believe that the Prophet ﷺ was a genius. And you'll find that he has, they say, كانت له شخصية بارزة عبر التاريخ. You'll find that he had a very, very famous personality. Rather, his personality stood out from everyone there were in his particular time and across history. You'll find that even from the non-Muslims that say he was the greatest personality that ever lived, where he had the most influence upon mankind. For all this, no doubt, is something that the Muslim does believe, that he is the final prophet, that he is the best of humanity, and that he had a tremendous, great personality, and that he was a tremendous leader. All these affairs, no doubt, it's incumbent upon a Muslim to believe. But those are the affairs in which the non-Muslims from them who profess this and also acknowledge this. And it still does not enter them in the fold of Islam. No doubt a Muslim believes that the Prophet ﷺ was highly intelligent and he was a genius and that he was a great leader. And he was the best of humanity. He was the best in character to the end of it. However, this is not adequate. It's like we said, they are from the non-Muslims who acknowledge this. But it still did not enter them in the fold of Islam. We will find and we say, no doubt, we say that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, we affirm his nubuwah, we affirm his prophethood, that he was truly a prophet. No doubt. That is an affair that will validate one's Islam, and if one denies it, then it will invalidate his Islam, meaning it will remove him from the fold of Islam. No doubt. But in regards to affirmation of his prophethood, is now binding upon one certain affairs. For example, if a person believes that he was a prophet, then he has to now carry out other matters. For example, if one says Muhammad Rasulullah, then he has to actualize first to believe that his risala or his message was generally for everyone. And it was not just for specific people. It wasn't just for the black man. It wasn't for the white man. It wasn't for the Arab. It was for everyone. So if a person says Muhammadur Rasulullah, then he believes that his message generalized everyone. Also, if a person says Muhammadur Rasulullah, it's obligatory for him to believe that he was the seal of all prophets and messengers, meaning he was the last of them. He was the last of them. And there's no prophet after him. So if you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, that means you also acknowledge and you testify that he is the seal of all prophets. He is the last of them. And if you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, you also have to believe that his message abrogated all the previous messages from the previous prophets and messengers. You'll find that what we're speaking about now, brothers and sisters, a lot of Muslims, some of them are heedless of these facts that we're explaining now. If you say Muhammad Rasulullah, then you have to believe that his message abrogated the previous revelation or the previous messages that came from the former prophets or the previous prophets and messengers. If you say Muhammad Rasulullah, then you have to believe that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, that he conveyed the risala, that he conveyed the message, and he did not conceal anything of it, or he did not hide anything of it. Rather, he conveyed all of it, and he did not hide anything. Alayhi salatu wassalam. So when you say Muhammad Rasulullah, you believe that he conveyed the message, all of it, without concealing any of it. If you say Muhammad Rasulullah, then you believe in his isma, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you believe that the wahi that he came with, or the revelation he came with, was protected, and it was what? Infallible. It was not subjected to any type of mistake. Rather, you believe that what he came with and brought of the revelation was perfect in every way. There wasn't any type of fallibility in the revelation whatsoever. And that the revelation was protected in what he informed about his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you say Muhammad Rasulullah, this testimony is comprehensive for all of these meanings. That when you say Muhammad Rasulullah, also you believe that the message of Allah has huquq, that the message of Allah ﷺ has rights over us. it's from his rights, alayhi salatu wassalam, and from his rights, alayhi salatu wassalam, is that you obey him. And from his rights is that you follow him, and that you love him, and that you revere him, and that you honor him, and that you follow him. Those are the rights of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam over the ummah. That if a person says Muhammadur Rasulullah, this is what's incumbent upon one. He has to bring all these affairs. As soon as one testifies that to say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that means that you acknowledge completely that his message generalized everyone, black, white, Asian, Italian, no matter who it is and what country or what land they're from or what culture or nationality, that his message generalized everyone. It was not for the white man, the black man, or the Arab. It was for everyone. Second, that he's the seal of our prophets. When you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, that means you testify that he is the seal of all prophets. If you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, then you firmly believe that his message abrogated the previous messages. And if you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, that means that you also believe that he conveyed the message and he did not hide or conceal any of it. And if you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, that means you believe that what he brought of revelation is infallible. It's not subjected to any type of fallibility whatsoever. Rather, it's perfect. In which he, alayhi salatu wasalam, informed about his Lord. And if you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, then you acknowledge completely that he, alayhi salatu wasalam, that he has rights over his ummah, over his followers. Hence, and from his huquq, alayhi salatu wasalam, is that you obey him, and you follow him, and you love him, and you revere him, and you honor him, alayhi salatu wasalam. All of this is from the meaning of Muhammadur Rasulullah. As you'll find, if you look to the actions of the Muslims, even though they say this testimony, you'll find that they're lacking in one of these facts, in one of these meanings that we just mentioned. You'll find that the meaning of Muhammadur Rasulullah is to firmly have the conviction and the belief in one's heart that everything he brought and he came with was from Allah, whether it be in the Quran or whether it be in the authentic Sunnah. Without separating between the two, you'll find from the deviant sects, from the Muslims who do not acknowledge this. You'll find they'll say, yes, we believe in the Quran and all of it's from Allah, but the Sunnah, we say we have a little bit of doubt about that. You'll find that they'll say, for example, that the Sunnah, we give precedence to our intellects over the Sunnah. That the Sunnah is just mentioned min bab al-istitnas, something that it just supports what the mind came with. Not realizing that the Sunnah is revelation from Allah likewise. It's not just what's in the Quran. The authentic Sunnah is also revelation. That has to be what? Firmly believed in, and that rejecting anything from the Sunnah, that anything that's been authentically reported about anything that's been authentically reported from the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, then one has to embrace it and believe in it wholeheartedly, and rejecting it is disbelief, even in the Sunnah. When you also testify that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah, then you also believe firmly and without any doubt, and without any reluctancy, without any hesitation, that what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ informed of the unseen is the truth. And there's no doubt in it. Whether it be ghaib nisbi or it be ghaib mutlaq, whether it be the unseen, which is called nisbi, relative. As we know, the unseen breaks down to two categories. The first category of the unseen is what they call ghaib nisbi. The unseen which is relative. And then you have the unseen which is absolute. What is the difference between the two? What they call al-ghaib nisbi, relative, or the unseen which is relative. Meaning that there are people who know it from the prophets and messengers, of course. There are people who know it and other people who are ignorant of it. Just what came in the authentic narrations of the previous nations from the past, of those who are punished, meaning from the mu'anideen, those who rejected the messengership of all the prophets from before. You'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book about, for example, Nuh and his people. He says, تِلْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهَا إِلَيْكَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed our Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about what took place previously in the other nations with the prophets and messengers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed the messenger of Allah what took place by saying, for example, that is from the news and the reports of the unseen that we revealed to you. So what took place with Nuh, and let's just say what took place between Prophet Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has informed that is from the affairs of the reports and the news that we have revealed to you, O Muhammad. This right here, brothers and sisters, is called ghaib nisbi. Ghaib nisbi, relative, or the unseen, which is relative, meaning there are certain people who know it from the prophets and messengers, and there are others who do not, meaning from the regular common folk who are not prophets and messengers, or whether they be from the ulama, of course, or those who have knowledge, as these affairs is still revelation. And the only one that would give this information was the prophets and the messengers. That's called ghaib nisbi. The prophets and messengers knew it based upon what was conveyed to them of revelation, where others did not. Then you'll find which is called ghaib mutlaq. Ghaib mutlaq, absolute, the unseen which is absolute. Unseen which is absolute. That no one knows it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That ultimately the origin of it, no one knows no one knows it in all cases. Except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, informed to his prophets and messengers. Like we said, that's called ghaib nisbi. And that's based upon what Allah revealed. But ultimately, absolute unseen, or what they call ghaib nisbi, ghaib mutlaq, the absolute unseen returns back to Allah. And which is from the affairs of the future, or from the names of Allah and His attributes, in His name, in His hand, or His descension, or the descension of Allah, or the ascension of Allah. Ultimately, all these affairs go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. And this is called ghaib mutlaq, the unseen which is absolute. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows these affairs. And He's the only one that knows the ghaib that is absolute. Whereas what is relative is based upon the revelation which was conveyed to only the prophets and the messengers. And that's called ghaib nisbi. That's called relative or unseen, that is relative. And that's only based upon what Allah revealed to the prophets and the messengers. But as far as what is the unseen, ultimately returns back to Allah, and those affairs is called ghaib mutlaq, absolute, or the unseen which is absolute in all cases. In regards to now, we're explaining, just to sum up and keep everything accurate, in regards to the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what he informed, whether it be of both categories. Because the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we know, from the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah, the meaning of Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. That you believe in everything of what he informed of the unseen, and that it is true, and there's no doubt in it. It does not matter. It does not matter whether it be ghaib nisbi or ghaib mutlaq, whether it be the unseen which is relative or the unseen which is absolute. All to just sum it up and keep everything easy for everyone to understand. When you say Muhammad Rasulullah, you believe in all of these affairs. What took place with the people of Nuh, what took place with the people of Yusuf, what took place with the people of Musa, what took place with all the prophets and the messages in the past, and what the message of Allah informed of the names of Allah and His attributes, and that Allah, that He Tabarak wa Ta'ala has those two hands that befit Him, and that Allah descends and that Allah ascends, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed there will be signs of the hour of the day of resurrection, and that the returning or the coming of Jesus the son of Mary, meaning the affairs that will take place in the future. And right before the day of resurrection, or what the message of Allah informed of the light or the middle life, meaning in the grave, or on the day of resurrection when the trumpet will be blown, and then the creation will be resurrected. All these are from the affairs that no one, when you say Muhammad Rasulullah, you have no reluctancy in believing it. That is from actualizing La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. For example, you'll find during the time of the Message of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, that the people did not believe in him when he said that he ascended above the seven heavens. When the Message of Allah ascended and he was brought to the seventh heaven, as we know that the Quraysh took the initiative to cast doubt in what he was bringing of that message, to the point where they even came to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu ardah, and this is the reason why he was called a Siddiq. That to the point where they even said, do you truly believe your companion that he claims that he rose, or that he ascended above in one night to Palestine, which where they call the masjid in Quds, which is called Bayt al-Maqdis in Palestine, that he actually ascended above the heavens and went to Palestine and then came back in one night. To the point where Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, did he say that? They said yes. He said, verily, if he said it, know for sure it's the truth. Laqad sadaq. Know for sure, indeed, it's the truth. To the point where they even tried to cast some more doubt. They said, do you really believe that he went in one night to Palestine and then he came back before the morning time? He said, yes. He said, I will believe him and what is further than that. And I believe him and I confirm and I believe of the news that he'll bring from the heavens in the morning and the evening. And for that reason that we know, Abu Bakr after that time took on the tremendous name of Siddiq because of this particular narration. So that shows that the message of Allah, the companions of the message of Allah, and even the polytheists knew of his truthfulness before the revelation started, before the advent of his messengership and prophethood, alayhi salatu wasalam. Like we talked about on previous lessons, we said that the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made all the signs clear even before the revelation started being revealed to him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for everything to be clear as the sun in the sky. Where the message of Allah, as we know, amongst his city or amongst his people, he was considered the most truthful out of all of them. And he was the most reliable out of all of them. and the most trustworthy out of all of them. To the point before the revelation started, they used to call him amongst themselves, go to the most trustworthy amongst us, who is Muhammad. Go to the one who's most truthful, the most trustworthy, who has the best character, who has the best manners, who's the best man as far as in his family, in his lineage. He comes from the most honorable of status and as far as his family and his lineage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had prepared for his messengership, so to the point when it started, nobody had no type of room to say anything. It was clear. The mushrikeen knew that he was truthful. So once the revelation started, and when it was being revealed to him, they had no room to say that he was a liar before the revelation, or before the revelation started. They knew that he was considered the most trustworthy out of their whole community of people, and their whole society of people. That's why Abu Bakr had no reluctancy to when he heard that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had went and ascended above the heavens to the point where he went to Palestine and came back. And one night, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did not hesitate to believe and accept the news that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ brought. The second example of how we should be, when a person says, Muhammadur Rasulullah, when you say that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. The second example of this, which comes in a tremendous narration, to show how the Sahaba loved the Messenger of Allah, how they respected him, and how they treated him with so much reverence. During his life and after his death, of course, there was another way that one honors, which is tremendous, which confirms that one truly actualized Muhammad Rasulullah, which we'll talk about in a minute. This narration is in Al-Bukhari, where there was a Sahabi, his name was Khuzaymah ibn Thabit. Khuzaymah ibn Thabit. Khuzaymah testified for the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, due to the fact that he knew that the Messenger of Allah was truthful. He was the most truthful of the people, if not the most truth of the creation, alayhi salatu wasalam. Most truthful of the creation, alayhi salatu wasalam. There was a time when the Messenger of Allah that he purchased a faras, like it was a type of riding beast. He purchased a riding beast, a faras. And said in the narration Bukhari that the Messenger of Allah purchased it from a Bedouin, from an A'rabi. He said, فَاسْتَتْبَعَهُ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said that he purchased it, alayhi salatu wasalam. Then, after he purchased, he made the actual sale contract. The Messenger of Allah went back to get the money to pay the value of the beast, which shows how humble the Messenger of Allah was. So notice that the Messenger of Allah didn't say, I'm the Messenger of Allah, give me the riding beast. Don't you know who I am? Look how humble he was, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was real humble. He went to get the money and bring it to pay for its value. So when he came, and this story shows how humble he was. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was looking for the man to give him his money, because he just brought the beast, or brought the riding beast. So the Messenger of Allah was moving expeditiously. He was moving quickly to try to hurry up and give him the money to pay for the value of the riding beast. So the Messenger of Allah was moving quickly, but the A'rabi, of course, was moving slow as far as preparation of giving him the riding beast, to the point where he thought that the Messenger of Allah maybe changed his mind. He was anticipating that the Messenger of Allah give it. He says, until there was men that objected and came in between this type of bargain, or this trade, or this purchase that was made. So they came to the Bedouin and they made a bargain with him for that riding beast that the Messenger of Allah initially purchased. So they didn't know that the Messenger of Allah bought it. Those people who was bargaining with the A'rabi. So the A'rabi called the Messenger of Allah, called him out. He says, if you're going to buy it, the riding beast, except if you're not going to buy it, then I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it. So the man thought that the Messenger of Allah maybe changed his mind because of him not moving, I guess, as quickly as the Arabi or the Bedouin thought he would move. So he thought he might have maybe perhaps changed his mind. So look to how the Messenger of Allah was so humble. So the Messenger of Allah didn't say, keep in mind, he didn't say, I'm the Messenger of Allah, don't you know who I am? Look how the Messenger of Allah, how humble he was. He said, when he heard the call from the Arabi, listen to what he said, alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, he said to the Bedouin, he said, did I buy it from you? Did I not purchase it from you? He said, I purchased it. I bought it. The Arabi said, La wallahi. He said, no, wallahi, you didn't buy it from me. You didn't buy it. So the Messenger of Allah said, I did. I bought it. I purchased it. Ibta'atuhu mink. I did. So the Arabi said, you have a witness to testify. Halumma shahida. So Khuzaybah ibn Thabit, he said, I testify that you bought it on the Messenger of Allah. He wasn't there. Khuzaymah ibn Thabit wasn't there. So the Prophet ﷺ approached him and said, Khuzaymah, how are you testifying for me? So listen to another part. The Messenger of Allah didn't even say, for example, oh, you didn't see it. Oh, khalas. Now I can use you as a witness. Look how truthful he was and look how humble he was. So he asked him, he said, by what are you testifying, Khuzaymah? He said, due to the fact I know you're a truthful man. He said, Tasdiquka ya Rasulullah. Because I believe in you. And I know you're truthful, you're not lying. فجاء رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم شهادة خزيمة بشهادة رجلين. To the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم that he made the testimony of Khuzaymah by the testimony of two men. So you notice in these narrations how the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم was not, he was very what? Very a humble man, in which the non-Muslims and the enemies of Islam, that they read these narrations to show that he truly was a humble individual. He wasn't anyone that was arrogant or tried to say, don't you know who I am? Don't you know that I'm the Messenger of Allah? Don't you know that if I said it, it goes? The Messenger of Allah, you seen how humble he was. He was a humble man. To the point where he even purchased the beast, gathered the money, and brought it back to the person who owned it to make the purchase. And never tried to utilize his status in order to what? Take advantage of anyone. Rather, you see how humble he was, alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, all these narrations increases to show that how he was truly the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. So this is how the companions were in regards to how they used to deal with him and having reverence to him. And all of this is part of the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah. All of this is the meaning of saying Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. Not just in his life, as you see in the Sahaba, how they used to have so much reverence for him and respect, but even after his death. And after his death, there's another way that you revere and honor him, in which a lot of people are heedless of in these days. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. From those who say Muhammad Rasulullah, but not realizing in their actions and in their beliefs, totally opposes this meaning or this testification. You'll find that from this, these are just examples, and there's too many to be counted, of how the Sahaba showed so much respect for what they heard from the Messenger of Allah and knew it was the truth. And I'll give one last example. One last example in regards to the deviant sects from the Khawarij. For example, when Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu knew about the Khawarij, that they knew about the Khawarij of the deviant sect, and the Messenger of Allah of course gave their descriptions of how they would look and how they would act and what would be from their signs from the deviant sect from the Khawarij. And we know that he informed and gave details of how they will look. And from them, as we know, when they came out and they emerged, Ali ibn Abi Talib said, as we know, that when the Khawarij, when they emerged and when they came with their deviance and their corruption and their mischief in the earth, they used a statement which is a statement of truth, but what they intended by it was falsehood, by them saying there's no rule or no ruling except for Allah, or the ruling is not except for Allah, The ruling or the judgment is not except for Allah, it's only for Allah to bring with the other. Ali said that is a statement of truth, but they're intended by falsehood. Then he said, the message of Allah informed us that there will be characteristics of these people, that they will speak with their tongues of the Quran, but it will not, of course, surpass their throats to the end of it. But at any rate, as we know, Ali ibn Abi Talib knew that from their characteristics, that the message of Allah informed that they would be the most hateful of creation with Allah. And that one of their hands will be big. It says, إِحْدَى يَدَيْهِ طَبْيُ شَاهٍ. Like their hands will be so big due to the amount of worship they would do at night, until some of their hands will be swollen, or so big as if it's like the stomach of a sheep, or it is like the size of the breast of the sheep. It will be swollen to that point. It will have that type of look. The point of the matter is, and why we mention this, Ali ibn Abi Talib heard this from the Messenger of Allah. So when he went out to fight these people, who in these days and times is considered the people of terrorism, when he went to fight them in order to remove their evil, he said, look to one of them. Look to one of them and look for these characteristics that we just said, that he just explained. And he said, we don't find anything. We're not finding what you said of what will be from their characteristics of their hands being severely swollen to this point. He said, go back, for wallahi, I did not lie, nor was I belied to. Meaning, he's saying, I am not lying, nor the one who conveyed to me lied. And he said it 3 times. He said, I'm not lying, and the one who conveyed to me did not lie. He's talking about the message of Allah. He said, they went back again to look. ثُمَّ وَجَدُوهُ فِي خَرْبَةٍ فَأَتَوْا بِهِ فَأَتَوْا بِهِ حَتَّى وَضَعُوهُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. He says, so they found this person with these characteristics in a place called Kharba. They brought him until they put him between or in front of Ali ibn Abi Talib, They put him in front of him. Until one of the people who was around, whose name was Ubaydullah, he says, I was there when this happened. He says exactly how Ali gave the characteristics. Was the characteristics of that man from the Khawarij. Exactly. How the Messenger of Allah said it is exactly how the man had those characteristics on his hand. Exactly. So this is to show how the Sahaba glorified and revered that they had no hesitation of what the Messenger of Allah informed. Because they knew that was part of actualizing Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. That all of what we just mentioned, this is part of it. So a person, when he says Muhammad Rasulullah, he does not have any hesitation in accepting what the Messenger of Allah brought of any type of news or any type of revelation, whether it be from the past or of today or in the future. Now we talked about and said that the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah, as we said, ta'atuhu fima amar wa tasdiquhu fima akhbar, is obeying him of what he commanded. Obeying him of what he commanded. And abstaining from what he prohibited. But notice that the love, or the wording that was used, ijtinab ma naha anhu wa zajar. The word ijtinab in the Arabic language, ijtinab, a lot of people think it's just to stay away from. There's some of the books translate the word as such. They say, for example, the word ijtinab just means to avoid. But the word ijtinab in the Arabic language, ijtinab ma naha anhu wa zajar, has in it what they call a taba'ud. It contains the meaning that you distance yourself from that thing. It has bu'd, that you make yourself distant from that particular matter. That you put yourself in a janib, meaning in a side that's far away. And for that reason, you'll find, for example, linguistically in the Arabic language, that a person, he cannot approach the prayer due to the fact that he's in the state of junub, which you'll find is another derivative. They're all from the same root word, janaba, ijtinab, junub, janaba, ijtanaba, jannaba, tajannaba. All of those words come from the same root. For example, a person that falls in the major state of impurity, where, for example, he has to go ghusl, he's in a state what they call junub. Why? Because it's been prohibited from him to approach or draw near the prayer. Meaning he stays far away from it until he's purified. Until he or she is purified. So that's why they say a person is in a state of junub. However, the word ijtinab, from the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah, from the meaning of it, is ijtinab ma naha anhu wa zajar. Is to make yourself distant from anything he prohibited, and you restrain yourself from committing that thing. So that's from the meanings of Muhammad Rasulullah, is to distance yourself from the muharramat, from the affairs that he prohibited alayhi salatu wasalam and made unlawful. And to put yourself at another side, distance from what he prohibited alayhi salatu wasalam. So that is from the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah is what, everyone? The meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah is to obey of what he commanded. Ta'atuhu fima amar. If you was to ask the average Muslim, a lot of them, meaning from the common folk, except from those who have been cultivated properly from the Salafis and from Ahl Haq, who took time to study, of course, and to truly grasp these matters that we're explaining now, and they comprehend it. Those who have been cultivated properly know this answer, and especially Ahl Sunnah and the Salafis from all over the world. But those from the deviant sects, you'll find that they have not been cultivated properly. If you was to ask them, especially the average Muslim, who's probably been Muslim for 30 or 40 years, and some of them come from Muslim countries, and that was born Muslim, ask them, what is the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah? They could not give you a straight answer. They'll say, oh, it's just a belief he's a prophet. Majority of them say, I just believe that he's a prophet. Or I just believe he's a prophet. Maybe he's a messenger, he's a prophet, yeah. That's how they would give the answer. Not realizing that the most perfect answer is to say, obeying him of what he commanded. To believe firmly in everything he conveyed without any hesitation or reluctancy. Tasdiquhu fima akhbar. To firmly believe of everything he informed. And to put yourself distant from anything he prohibited, everything he prohibited and he made unlawful, and to restrain yourself from that thing. And not to worship Allah except by what he legislated. That is the complete ta'rif, the complete and most comprehensive definition of Muhammad Rasulullah. The majority of the Muslims, if you was to ask them the meaning of it, they would not be able to give you a straight answer. They would not be able to give you this answer. And then you will ask them, what is incumbent upon you to believe if you say Muhammad Rasulullah? That you believe, for example, that his message generalized every nationality and every people and every race and every background. Or, for example, what we just mentioned, that his message, or that he conveyed the message completely and did not hide anything. Or, for example, like we just mentioned, that he, alayhi salatu wasalam, his message abrogated the previous ones. And that he was the seal of all prophets. And that the revelation is protected. And it's infallible. And that the message of Allah has rights from you following him, and obeying him, and loving him, and respecting him, and revering him. All these affairs, you'll find a lot of the Muslims that they totally what? That they come up very short in regards to the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah. And these are the affairs that's considered, like we said, brothers and sisters, the mere foundations. If you want to say, for lack of better words, the ABCs. The ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. And this is the affairs you'll find that the people neglect in teaching and cultivating the people upon. And that's why they fall into what they fall into. Of what will actually negate Muhammad Rasulullah. The last thing we want to talk about before we close, from the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah, is that you do not worship Allah except by what he legislated. Which is an affair you'll find that a lot of Muslims come up short in, especially from the deviant sects. Not that to worship Allah, that Allah not be worshipped except by what he legislated. Meaning that your worship for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your subservience or your servitude, of course, and your love for Allah that you verbally profess with your tongue. And what you try to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by prayer, or fasting, or giving charity, or fighting in the cause of Allah, or defending the religion, or commanding the good or forbidding the evil. That you say that you profess that you love Allah, or that you want to draw close to Allah by your servitude is for Allah, except that it has to be in accordance to how the message of Allah legislated it. Meaning, in accordance to what Allah revealed to him. And that your action will not be accepted except by what agrees with what the guidance he came with. Or else, like we said before, then your what? Your action is rejected. Or you drawing close to Allah, or that you claiming that you love Allah, all of it is rejected. All of it has not been properly confirmed due to the fact you did not follow the message of Allah. You'll find that the great Imam, that his name was Abu Abdullah ibn Bakr, عندما سئل عن أصل الدين. Abu Abdullah ibn Bakr, it was asked, what is the origin of the religion? He said, إثبات صدق الاقتداء إلى الله ولزوم الاقتداء برسول الله. I'm sorry everyone. He said that the origin of the religion is based upon this. The establishment that one truly affirms his need and his servitude for Allah alone. He's talking about the ibadah of La ilaha illallah. And clinging and sticking to taking the message of Allah as a role model to be followed. And that the religion that is firmly established upon these two foundations, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of them will be stood or validated except by actualizing both of these foundations. And if a person does not affirm the second part of the testimony of Muhammad Rasulullah, then he is worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and drawing close to him by an innovative practice or innovative type of worship, which as a result of it, he has not actualized Muhammad Rasulullah. He did not carry this testimony out properly, rather he did not carry it out. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book that we created you, meaning the creation from mankind, to test one of you who is the best in actions. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعث مقام محمود ذي وعدها. So we said that a person now, that they say they love Allah, but they draw close to Allah by affairs in which the Messenger of Allah did not legislate, meaning that he draws close to Allah by worship that is innovated, then he has not carried out the testimony of Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. Did not carry it out. As we know, the tremendous, profound statement of the great Imam al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, and I'm sure that everyone from the Salafis and Ahl Sunnah is familiar with, that they was asked, what is the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah? Or La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. And he gave the tremendous answer by two words, Ikhlasuhu wa aswabuhu. Those actions that are acceptable by Allah Ta'ala, that they have those two conditions, that have to be the most sincere and they have to be the most correct. Meaning that if a person worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by showing off or by ascribing the one who deserves that ibadah or that worship, who's Allah, that you now direct that worship to other than Allah by having some type of polytheism, or if you now seek some type of reward or praise from another individual by showing off, then he has not actualized La ilaha illallah. And whoever goes outside what the Messenger of Allah commanded, of what he legislated, and he draws close to Allah by innovative practices, then he has not actualized the testimony that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. And for that reason, you'll find that the great Mu'allif, or that the great Imam, who's Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who's the author of this book, that he also gathered between what is called negation and affirmation. Why? Because worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not valid except by what the Messenger of Allah legislated and what he commanded. For verily all of the innovative worships, or worship that is innovative or newly invented matters or practices, if a person draws close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by it, then we just said he has not actualized and purified his testimony. He has not purified the testimony that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. For verily it has to be in agreement to what he legislated by his guidance that he came with, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that is in agreement with the hadith, as we know, whoever does an act that is not in accordance with this affairs of ours, then he will have it rejected. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he said about what we're discussing now. He said that the origin in worship is a tawqif. That the origin in all affairs of worship is al-mana' with tawqif. The origin in all affairs of worship, that everything is prohibited. And that everyone has to stop and not do anything. For it's not legislated for you to do anything of worship unless you make sure Allah legislated it. And you have to check to see if the Messenger of Allah legislated, because we know legislation upon the tongue of the Messenger of Allah is what Allah legislated. And if a person does that, and he did not make sure what Allah and His Messenger legislated for one to draw close to Allah by, then he will take his portion of the ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Ash-Shura, do they have partners which have legislated for them of the religion in which Allah did not give any permission? For we know that ishtirat al-tawqif, that the origin in the affairs of worship is al-mana', that one has to stop and refrain, and that everything is prohibited, which is an indication of innovative practices and things that are invalid in worship is all been what? Has all been taken as a precautionary measure for one not to fall in. That's the reason why the origin of the origin in worship is what we're saying now, is that it's what is prohibited, and that one stops unless there's unless there's an evidence that clearly shows that you can do it. Ibn al-Qayyim says in a tremendous statement, he says that the person who worships Allah without it being in accordance with the guidance of the Messenger of Allah, and one embarking upon the path to Allah and the hereafter, it's like a one setting out in the journey. Because it's as if Ibn al-Qayyim is trying to say that what we're in now, the reality, what we're in now is like a journey. We're in a journey to Allah. And he says when a person sets out in this journey to Allah, and he says Muhammad Rasulullah, and a person that says this, but he's not now actualizing this by drawing close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by affairs that he did not legislate, is similar to the one, for example, that set out in a journey. He set out in a journey, and he says, in Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, كَالَّذِي يَعْبُدُ اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ السُنَّةِ يعني غير متقيد بالسنة كالذي يحمل جرابا ملأ الجراب رملا حمله على رأسه فسافر به فإذا وصل من حيث شاء وفتح الجراب ماذا يرى؟ لا يرى شيئا، لا يرى سكرا ولا طعاما ولا رزا ولا شراب، لا يجد شيء. For the one who journeys to Allah without grasping the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah and doing it in accordance to what he legislated, it's like the man who sets out on a journey and he has a bag, and he carries this bag, and before he sets out to his journey, what is expected that a person fills his bag with? He fills it with food, fills it with sustenance, things that's truly going to give him some type of benefit. So when he reaches his goal, or he reaches his destination, or if he has to now take some type of rest, he will open the bag and have something beneficial for him, so he can complete his journey. Or he reaches his destination, and he'll be what? He'll also be relaxed, because he has what will truly give him benefit. He says the person now who does not worship Allah based upon the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah is like this person. Fills his bag with dirt. He fills his bag with dirt. And he carries the dirt upon his head. And he travels, and he sets out on his journey with this heavy bag of dirt. What is the heavy bag of dirt going to do? It's going to render him tired. It's going to make him weary. So he's basically Ibn al-Qayyim is giving this type of example, like the people who worship Allah upon innovative matters, how they render themselves what? Weary and tired, without any what? Benefit. He said this person carries the dirt upon his head, traveling and setting out on this long, long journey. And then when he arrives of what Allah wills for him to arrive, he opens up the bag, and what does he find? Nothing. Doesn't find anything except dirt. No benefit, nothing of rice, nothing of food, nothing of true sustenance or true nutrients. Nothing. He absolutely wasted his time. And he rendered himself exhausted and weary for nothing. He said this is the example of the one who worships Allah and tries to draw close to Allah. Meaning in this world, because we know in this world we're in a journey, setting out towards Allah. And a person who carries a bag of dirt is just a person who's just doing affairs that will render him weary and tired and exhausted without any type of benefit ultimately in the end. That is the example of the person who worships and draws close to Allah by it not being in accordance with the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. And that is in the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ghashiyah, where Allah tabarak wa ta'ala says in his book, عَامِلَةٌ نَاصِبَةٌ تَصْلَى نَارًا حَامِيَةً تُسْقَى مِنْ عَيْنٍ آنِيَةٍ. The perfect that we hear for Jumu'ah. mostly every Friday. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, people doing work of drawing close to Allah by doing actions that will render them weary and tired, and exhausted. Meaning people will render themselves, making themselves tired, exhausted, amilatun nasiba. Hard work, diligent work, working diligently until the point where they're exhausted, trying to draw close to Allah. Then it says in the ayah, they will be burned in hell. Tasla naran hamiyah. They will be burned in hell. And they will be given a drink of a boiling spring. Why? Due to the fact that they did not fulfill those two conditions, whether it was upon monotheism, where they did not direct their worship solely and exclusively for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or they came up short in following the sunnah, where their actions, where they draw close to Allah by, was not legislated of what Allah revealed to His Prophet and Messenger and what the Messenger conveyed to the people, or what's considered a legislated, accepted act by Allah. So then when they draw close to Allah by it, and you'll find in this ayah, brothers and sisters, that innovative practice is that the one, he does not just have his action rejected and that's it. Due to the fact that a person draw close to Allah, you could earn the sin and the crime of even being what? Punished in the hellfire by it. So following the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah is very important. It's not just one being falling into what is considered the most greatest of what? The greatest of loss is that you worked so diligently and hard, and in the end you find out that it was all for nothing. That in itself is an ultimate disgrace. That you was in this world for the years you were in and the time you spent in this dunya, and then ultimately in the end you find that what you did was fruitless. That is disgraceful in itself. But however, what is more disgraceful is the fact that you will be punished for what you draw to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by those innovative practices in which is considered a sin. So that's the reason why you'll find that the ulama say that the origin of worship is everything is prohibited and that one stops until you make sure that there's a text that Allah legislated either in His book or legislated upon the tongue of the Messenger of Allah in the authentic sunnah that you can draw close to Allah by that particular worship. There's another statement by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah that he put in his tremendous book called I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een an Rabbil Alameen. That Ibn al-Qayyim, the Al-Allama Ibn al-Qayyim that he mentioned said, Al-Asl fil ibadat al-Butlan hatta yaquma dalilun ala al-amr. That the origin, the affairs of worship is Butlan. Everything is invalid. The origin in all the affairs of worship, that everything is invalid until there's a dalil, there's an evidence and proof that what? That substantiates it. That substantiates that affair. Until there's an evidence and proof that says you can do it. Now listen what Ibn al-Qayyim goes on to say. He says, فَمَنْ تَقَرَّبَ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِعَمَلٍ لَمْ يَجْعَلْهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ قُرْبَةً إِلَى اللَّهِ فَعَمَلُهُ بَاطِلٌ مَرْدُودٌ عَلَيْهِ. Whoever draws close to Allah by an action that Allah and His Messenger did not make it a legislated action in which one can draw close to Allah by, then his action is null and void and rejected against him. And we'll stop here, inshallah. There's more, but inshallah we'll suffice with that. طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. We continue the next class after the salah, inshallah. Is there any questions about the lesson?